Today, I'm listing 7 horrible, horrible home buyer mistakes you don't want to make. That's what I'm talking about today. This is Ohio Real Estate. My name is Jason Ferrier. Let's get to the list. Okay, number 1 is a sloped driveway that never sees the sun. Yeah, so if you are in an area that has winter weather, harsh winter weather, snow, ice, sub-zero temperatures a lot of the time, and you're looking at a house, you got to make sure that one of the things you have to look at is the driveway. Is that driveway sloped? If it is, just know if there's snow on it, it's going to be a slippery mess when you're walking outside if the snow hasn't melted. And not only that, if you buy a house that's facing the wrong direction and doesn't get a lot of sun, and trust me, like in Ohio here, sun doesn't come out much in the winter. And when it does, you want your driveway to be in the sun because you want to melt that snow and dry it up so that you don't have to constantly scrape the ice off of it. And a lot of times you don't want to use salt because salt can damage the sidewalk or driveway. So number 1, my big home buying mistake is don't buy a property with a sloped driveway that doesn't see the sun. Don't do that. Speaking from experience, it's a winter mess. All right. Number 2 is future marketability. All right. When you buy your house, think about what's going to happen if you do have to sell it. And here's a great example. If you buy a house on a golf course or with a pool, you have to realize not everybody wants to live on a golf course and not everybody wants to own a pool. In fact, I have a lot of buyer clients that tell me there's no way on earth they're going to buy a house with a pool. So those houses are ruled out. Also have clients that tell me I'm not going to buy or build a house on a golf course. So if you're buying a house on a golf course or you have a pool or some other cool feature of the house that you think is awesome, just remember, you may think it's awesome, but the general public may not want it. So watch out for that. Number 3 is trees. Trees can do huge amounts of damage to your property. What I mean by that is you have trees that are overgrown and actually touching the roof. That can really damage the roof. It can clog up the gutters with leaves and sticks and debris, especially pine trees. Where I live now, I have massive, massive pine trees around me. Now, I knew that going in. I was okay with it. I knew I'd have to deal with it. But man, these trees cause a ton of headache for me. A lot of pollen on the house, needles clogging the gutters. I got to get up there all the time, even with gutter covers, and clean them. Just not fun. So watch out for trees. Not only that, they're really expensive. I mean, you can spend like $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 removing trees. Not cheap. And it doesn't really do much except remove the tree. I don't like cutting down trees, but sometimes it's a necessity. The last thing you got to look at with trees is roots. I can't tell you how much money I have spent on my rental properties with tree roots growing through the main line that goes out to the sewer. It can clog up the sewer, can clog up the lines, clog up the drains, and be an absolute nightmare. Roots can also mess up sidewalks and foundations. So whatever you do, make sure you look at the trees and understand what you're dealing with. Okay, number 4 is neighbors. Make sure you understand what the neighbors are like. And this is the example I always use. I had a client just recently that went to purchase a house. They made an offer, got accepted, and then they decided, I'm going to go and drive by on a Saturday morning and see what it's like over there. So they drove by on Saturday morning, early in the morning, and guess what they heard? A rooster. That's right, a rooster next door that they didn't see when we first looked at the house. And that rooster gets up in the morning, early in the morning, and makes some noise. So if you're somebody that likes to sleep in, that rooster would be a big pain in the rear and not much you can do about it because you bought the house. Your neighbor has a rooster. You can't tell your neighbor to get rid of the rooster, so you're stuck. So understand what your neighbors are like. Do your neighbors take care of their house? Are their lawns well kept? Or is their house a complete mess on the outside? That's going to reflect on your property. So understand what neighbors you have and what their environment's like, because you can't pick up your house and move it. Okay, let's go to the next one. The next one is flood zone. Now, this isn't like an abnormal mistake, but I see a lot of people, even investors, make this decision. I had a client once who would buy, an investor client who would constantly buy rental properties in flood zones. And I'd always ask, why are you buying these properties in flood zones? I wasn't the agent that helped them with buying the property. I was helping them sell the property, but they were purchasing houses in flood zones and they were hard to sell because people don't want properties in flood zones. Not only do you have a risk of floods, but there's extra insurance often that comes with that. So check flood zones. I check a flood zone before I look at any house. That's the first thing I do. When I have a lead, when I have a client that wants to look at a house, first thing I look at, flood zone. Is it in a flood zone? If it is, I advise them. There is going to be extra cost and it's going to be harder to sell and market the property if it's in a flood zone. It's just the way it is. All right. Next one is not visiting at different times of the day. So going back to the rooster thing, if my client hadn't gone to that property in the morning, they never would have known about this rooster. So you have to go to your property that you're thinking about buying multiple times during the day. Go in the middle of the night, go on the weekend, go in the morning, go during the day, go on a holiday maybe. Whatever you have to do to get an idea of what happens in that neighborhood morning, noon, and nighttime. Because just because it's a peaceful area during the day doesn't mean it's peaceful at night. And again, you don't really know what your neighbors are like until you move in. So it's good to scope it out several times. All right. Last one is HOA and zoning. If you're buying a new house, especially, or a house in a subdivision, understand exactly what the HOA rules say. Because if you're someone who likes to build bonfires, or you want to put up a new shed, or maybe paint your house a different color, or maybe park an RV or a boat out there, you have to understand if the HOA or the subdivision allows for that. Do they allow you to do that? I know several people who purchased houses, never ever checked the HOA situation, and then discovered they couldn't put the boat in the yard. They couldn't even work on their car in their driveway. Heck, there are places you can't even wash your car in the driveway. That's right. You can't even wash your car in your driveway. Understand that before you pull the trigger and close. In addition, with zoning, if you take an aerial view of the property you're buying, look around it and see what's happening. Is there commercial space near it? Are there open fields that could be developed into larger housing areas? Is there industrial areas near you? What are the plans for that area? You can go to the city, you can look at the zoning, even talk to the zoning officer and other businesses in the area and understand what could potentially happen around your house. Because the worst thing would be to make assumptions, assume everything's okay, and that big field behind you is going to be a big field forever. And then one day you see some bulldozers and figure out, oh, they're going to put in another 100 houses right in your backyard. Not good for some people. So those are my tips for avoiding the worst home buying mistakes you can make. There are certainly others, but these definitely stand out. Hey, have a good day. And if you need to buy, sell, or invest in real estate in Ohio, give me a shout. Or if you just have a question about real estate, hit me up. I'd love to help. See you on the next video.